Ladies and gentlemen, namaskar. Welcome to the 15th edition of the Jaipur Literature Festival, protected by Dettol. Banega Swasth India. We are at Bank of Baroda Mughal tent. We are delighted to introduce its reigning cats and dogs. This session is presented by Rajasthan Patrika. Nothing can quite match the bond between cats, dogs, and their humans. Devapriya Roy's Cats People is a charming feline anthology, the lives and obsession of cats and cat lovers. Hemali Sodhi's edited anthology, The Book of Dog, celebrates canines through the poignant stories of those they have known and loved. In conversation with Arunava Sinha, they discuss the relationship between humans and keepers of our hearts. Devapriya is the author of 3 best-selling novels, The Vague Woman's Handbook, The Weight Loss Club, and Friends from College. In 2015, she published The Heat and Dust Project, co-written with Saurav Jha, which debuted at #1 on the Hindustan Times AC Nielsen list. Hemali Sodhi is the founder of a suitable agency which represents writers and advises on corporate communications and brand strategy. She has over 2 decades of experience in publishing, communication, and brand strategy. Arunava Sinha translates classic, modern, and contemporary Bengali fiction, non-fiction, and poetry into English, and fiction from English into Bengali. Over 65 of his translations have been published so far. Please welcome all 3 of them. They are going to be signing their books too after the session. Grab your copies, and they'll be here.
Hello, good afternoon. It's lovely to be here. Welcome, Hemali and Devapriya. Before we begin, at least that is to say, before we begin talking to the respective editors of the dog book and the cat book, I'd like to take a quick straw poll among the audience. So, dog lovers, put up your hands. Okay? Cat lovers, put up your hands. I think the dogs have it. The dogs have it. Okay, great. How many of you are both dog and cat lovers? Now I have to join in. Okay, wonderful. So welcome to the greatest rivalry of all times, dogs versus cats. You thought it might have been a different kind of competition, but it's not. So I'm going to start by asking the guardian of dogs and the guardian of cats a quick debate. Why are dogs the greatest creatures in the universe? And then that's Hemali, and then Devapriya, why are cats the greatest creatures in the universe? Hemali, your time starts
Such
now.
difficult questions, I think.
Hemali, your time
Well,
starts
for someone
now.
who's both a dog and a cat lover, that's hard to say. But I think, oh, you wanted a quick answer? Okay. I think it's just the unconditional love. I think the fact that there's no artifice, there's no pretension. I think it's like someone said, you will probably have greater relationships in your life, but you won't have a purer one.
Okay, Devapriya.
I can't beat that, but cats are cool. They're cool and they're aloof. And they're kind of like millennials who I really admire.
So if cats are millennials, dogs are geriatrics.
Wise.
Wise, okay. Boomers versus zoomers. All right, let's talk about the beginning of the book for each of you. When did you think about this book? How did you conceive it? Same question to both of you.
So I actually wasn't, I did not have a connection with dogs in my early years. I am what some people would say a late bloomer. It was fairly late in life when I got married into a household which was devoted to dogs. And slowly the conversations around dogs began, and to cut a long story short, we got our first dog, Simba. And it was life-changing for me. It was a completely transformative experience. I hadn't had a relationship so pure in my life. And then I think what really happens when you become a dog parent is that you start operating in this universe of other dog parents, and you start exchanging these stories. And slowly, I mean, there were all these stories that were collected around people and their dogs. And because I work in publishing, I think the expression of how you'd like to see a story told is naturally through books. So the idea around doing a story, and I think what really happens interestingly is, growing up, you do have a lot of dogs in literature, whether it's Snoopy or it's Snowy, or you have all those. But somehow, maybe I'm not reading the right books, but I haven't read so many books which feature dogs at their center. I think the last one I read was probably Call of the Wild and Marley and Me. And so this idea was to actually put together an anthology where, of course, it was around humans, but dogs would be center stage. And along the way, I wanted to feature some stories from animal rescuers, because, I mean, they form a significant part of the book. And that's how it actually began. People started recommending other people, and we have our list of 45 contributors.
Okay. Favorite literary dog? Dogs from books, yes? Scooby-Doo. Okay, who else? Yes, go on, speak up. Okay. Anyone else? Snoopy? Snowy? Snoopy, Snowy? Okay, great.
May I raise my hand?
Yes.
I've been reading Tagore's Gora, and there's a little dog called Khude in it who's...
Khude. Yes, great.
Yeah.
Okay. On that note, over to you, Devapriya.
It's a really odd story how this book came to be. I teach, and I teach these 18, 19-year-olds. So, I have a very long commute from home to where I teach. And my friend Janice, the writer, she and I would do the commute together, and she's a cat parent. So we would basically spend the hour and a half talking about her cat. So perhaps I was feeling a bit of FOMO, I don't know. Then one day I had a cat story of my own to tell her. And this is, a student came up to me, a student who was a great reader of books. So I would bring her a book, like an offering every week. So she came and told me, you have so many books. Can you adopt me? I basically want access to your books. So I said, look, I'm too poor to adopt you, and also too useless. I can't sort of, look after you. Then she came back the next day and said, I have a solution. I'll be your cat. Okay, so I am your human cat, and I am very low maintenance. Cats don't need as much looking after as perhaps dogs do. And I was very taken with the story. So I told Janice this, and Janice said, I'd like to meet your cat. And that was sort of the moment, I thought, there should be a book about cats who own people, people who love cats, these relationships. And then somewhere down the line, I became that person who collected this book. So it was really as serendipitous as that, as, books come to be.
So you've only had one human cat and no feline cats?
No. So then in the course of the book, so this is 3 years ago, and then I met Himanjali and Shayantan, and they said, yeah, let's do this book. Okay, so just put it together. And I'm like, but I'm a, kind of a fraud. They said, no, just let's have it. So then I started writing to people, but more than people, then suddenly cat stories and cats started coming to me. So that's what the sort of the book collects. So there are all kinds of cat stories.
But do you have cats at home?
I have a cat who has adopted me, but she only comes at a fixed time every day and perches in a very fixed place and goes away. And I really like that, because I feel that writers are actually cats. Because, deep inside me, my writer self is a cat self. I only want people as much as I can take them. And rest of the time, I'm like, okay, bye.
So you can't really be a cat parent, can you? You can be an admirer or...
Yeah, I suppose so. Or maybe I can be. I don't know.
Not you particularly. I mean, can humans be cat parents at all, or will cats not accept such guardianship?
I
Not
think some
guardianship. I
relationships
think
don't require a definition.
Yes.
No, that's very easy to say, but you people are writers and editors, so you have to find words for them.
Yeah, so cats are very hashtag not all cats. So some cats, I suppose, can accept parents, and some will say no, just comradeship is okay. We are just comrades, and some will just be friends, I suppose, or frenemies.
So there was this saying I remember reading, which was, dogs have parents, cats have staff.
Oh, exactly. And that's what Janice writes in her essay, that she is chief doorman to Vincent.
So, Himali, you've had about a dozen dogs at different points of time in your home.
Probably more.
Tell us about them and what it's been like, and their peculiarities and their wonderfulness.
So our first dog was Simba. Sorry, our first dog was Simba. He came to us around 16 years ago. And like I said, I mean, I mentioned Simba in the introduction. He was transformative, not just for me, but for my entire family, because my parents also were not that accustomed to having a dog in their lives. And then it just became this thing where we said that we wanted to get Simba company, but we just became we fell in love with the idea of having a dog. And so then the two delightful brothers, Jack Sparrow and Carlos, came. They were completely insane, but very, very lovable. They were boxers. And then slowly what also happened was that I did not know about breeders. I did not know about backyard breeding. I did not know about the problems that Indies face. So I think after that what happened was, after that all our dogs have been rescues. So they've been either dogs who need to be rehomed or dogs who come from an extreme case of abuse. And Cooper was one such. He was a Great Dane. And at the very young age of 4 months, he had gone through extreme abuse. And I got a call from Friendicos saying, I used to support Friendicos a bit. So I got a call from Tandalri, who's also contributed to the book, saying, look, there's this case of extreme abuse, but we just don't know what to do, because, I mean, he's a Great Dane, but he's been... They couldn't get him out legally, so Friendicos had to actually buy him off. It was that bad. They bought him off from the owner and he came to us. But Cooper, when he came to us, and I keep going back to Cooper because also that was the first experience that we had with a rescue dog, and how battered they are when they come, but give them the right environment and give them a chance, and he just bloomed. He became this wonderful, very loving, very affectionate dog. And then after that, we've had quite a few of the strays in our colony who adopted us. We had Nikki, who was a stray who unfortunately had an accident and was paralyzed and then came to live with us. And I think each dog, it's very difficult to say because each one is a very special individual relationship. I can't collectively say that, I mean, dogs are like this. They're all, and that's the wonderful thing. Each dog, even in the book, has a very distinct personality. And so it continues. I think it's once you fall in love with a dog, that's it. You're in for life.
Will you talk to us about some of the dogs in your book?
I think we should start by talking about the dazzling literary debut of Tingmo, who
Yes.
you have helped translate. May I say it's one of your finest works of translation. Interspecies translation has happened.
Thank you.
So,
That's the thing about our moderator. He's featured in both the books.
he's featured in both the books.
That's how I got this job.
But yeah, so I was chasing Arunava for about 2 years. I think this book's been in the making for more than 2 years. I was chasing him for around 2 years. And he, being the busy person that he is, kept fobbing me off and saying, we'll do something. And then finally he hit upon this idea that his golden retriever, Tingmo, who's the most adorable golden retriever I've seen, would write haikus about a typical day in his life. Do you want to talk a bit about Tingmo to the audience? I think we should talk about the brilliant literary debut of the year.
Yeah, well, you meet an original voice and then it's quite a challenge to translate it. And it doesn't help when the author is right there breathing down your neck, very literally,
Literally.
and trying to demanding food and love alternately throughout the day and night. So it was the toughest translation challenge in my life, I can tell you that.
So there are about 45 stories. There are 45 contributions, and they interestingly span many genres. There's poetry, there are essays, there are photo features. There are some very, very funny stories. Shobha Day's story is really funny. Ashok Ferry's done a brilliant piece. But I think, again, the central point of all the stories is the dogs and the very, very lovely and unique personality each of them have.
So do you think these stories reveal more about the dogs or about the humans?
Both. So if you read Naomi Barton's piece, for instance, it's one of the most stunning pieces that I have read. It was so raw and so perfect and so from the heart that we had a tough time editing it because it felt like an intrusion. But I think in her case, for instance, it was about how melody rescued her rather than the other way around. And I think that's also interesting in terms of the effect that every dog has had on every individual's life. So while some stories, and also, it's hard. Loss is part of being a pet parent, right? That's also a very, very hard reality of being a pet parent. But I think, yes, each story does talk as much about the pet parent as about the dog.
At this point, before we go on to the much more complex relationship between cats and humans, does anyone have a dog story you would like to share? A story about your own dog or somebody else's dog? We are happy to hear it. Yes, very quickly tell us. Please tell us your name and the name of the dog, and very quickly.
Yeah, so my name is Uma and I have a dog. He's a Labrador. His name is Luke. We got inspired by the name because me and my dad really like Star Wars, and we got the name Luke from Star Wars. And yeah, that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you, that's lovely. Okay, we'll come back to more stories, but meanwhile, the extremely complex and the world's most fraught relationships between cats and humans.
So, as Hemali said, this book also it's got fiction, it's got long essays, it's got a graphic narrative, it's got a couple of list essays, which I really love. It's got a photo essay. So it's a mix of different things, and as you said, it's such a complex relationship that we needed the oblique approach in many cases, which fiction provides. But there are also personal essays about cats, and there are some translations too. Do you want to tell us about Bonkim's socialist cat?
Enough of me. Talk to us about the cats instead.
Cats in the book. So, as the editor, I cannot have favorites.
You can,
right?
you totally can, and you have them and you know it. No one will mind, it's all right.
But there are lots, so I'll talk about a few of the cats in the book. There is Bhagavati Charan Verma's very wicked cat, Kabri. And the beauty of this was that one of my students translated it from Hindi into English. And the writer Anukriti Upadhyay, the essay that she wrote about her cat Mao references that story. So that came together. The other thing that really I loved about this, about the coming together of all these cat stories, is that, when I was commissioning the stories, because there was also fiction, some said they'd write fiction, there were these different parts of a puzzle, because usually a book, I don't know, I've only had experiences with books where I've worked chronologically, so the arc as it takes shape. Here, that was being worked out intuitively by 33 different writers, and it came together in a narrative shape. That was the stuff of wonder. That's the kind of thing that, books do. And I think that's how ultimately, Hemali, you said this in the beginning, that being in this world of books, when you love something, then that's the form that it takes, right? To even articulate it to yourself, I think I need a book, So that's how it came together, and that was the magic of it.
Okay. What did you learn about cats from editing this book?
Exactly that you think cats can be defined by a book? That's what I learned.
No, that's
It
the
can't be.
easy answer. I didn't ask for a quick answer. Give us a nice detailed answer. Tell us 5 things you've learnt about cats.
I will repeat the old answer, but then of course he's going to say no. But I'll tell you, there's a young writer who's written a piece where she's wondering whether she's a cat or she's a person, and so she makes a helpful list, right? And that list was a good checklist for the other essays as well, right? So cats love to sit in boxes, and they get really attached to boxes. So what she writes is that this young person, she was going off to study in the UK. And so she'd ordered a lot of things, all these things came in boxes. So one box, she gave her cat and said, okay, now just play with this, let me pack. And then the cat, Goofy, became Casabianca and literally stayed in that box. So she'd go do her stuff, come and sleep in the box. So Tista went away to London. Her mother waited for Goofy to, get over the box. That didn't happen. The box became ragged, but the box is there. So that's one cat story.
Isn't it kind of similar with dogs? They also have their beds and which they will not give up even when they've outgrown them.
That is true, actually. But I think dogs are probably more malleable and more susceptible to either treats or bribery. So it's easier in that case.
Okay, couple more things you've learnt about cats.
Then, funny story, how the biggest cat person in my family is my niece. She's been obsessed with cats since she was a kid. So then I think she was around 13 or 14. Her father's in the army. So they used to live in a naval base. So one day a cat just turned up and walked inside and basically announced that she is going to live here. So my niece was obviously thrilled and immediately sort of said, yes, sure. So then the dad, the brigadier, came back in the evening. He used to be very anti-cats at that time. He said, either the cat stays or I stay, I suppose in a, very big booming voice. So daughter and cat walked inside. And so he says that was it. I, didn't get dramatic anymore. I understood my place in the household. I walked back in and that was it. So this is my grand cat. And so she now lives in Delhi. Her name is Crystal and she has blue eyes and she's like an Egyptian queen, okay? So there are lots of other cats in the cantonment. And these old army houses, they've got these clear-story windows. So there's Crystal sort of sitting in her very fancy, basket or whatever. And these other cats will go past looking in hungrily, And she's going to be like, we are not the same species, don't look at me. So that's another cat.
An army cat, basically. Not willing to consort with civilians.
Absolutely.
Does anyone have any cat stories that you'd like to share? Yes, Luke's human also has a cat. Could you pass the mic? Oh, all right. Could you pass the mic, please? Yes, first from you, ma'am, and then from...
So I have a small black cat called Jamun, or I suppose Jamun has me. And she's very, I think, equal parts affectionate and aloof. And I think I've had dogs my whole life. So I think I was very used to showing affection to an animal who would then show affection back to me immediately. I think Jamun has taught me to be more secure in myself, and I'm fairly confident she loves me, or at least I suspect she loves me. And I just have to make do with the fact that she'll come over when she wants and just learn how to be more secure in myself, I think, which is what I've learned from her.
That's such a wonderful answer.
So you're basically saying cats teach us real life human relationships better than dogs do. Dogs set very unrealistic expectations. Yes.
Yeah, so I have a cat story where I was at my friend's house and we went for a walk, and there was this place where I don't know, 5 cats were there, but then one, it looked like Ginger. Me and my friend named it Ginger. It just started walking to us. It was around the evening, so after a while we just started petting it, I was scared because I don't really like cats too much. But I started petting it, and then ever since that happened, it started following us everywhere. So me and my friend kind of built a box for it, but it never went in. She also has a dog. So like I was at a sleepover. So the next day we were putting food for the dog. Like I know, like an hour later, the cat that we pet the other day, it just started coming and eating the dog's food. So for some reason the dog was scared of the cat, but the cat was supposed to be scared of the dog. The dog was scared of the cat. So the dog started running away and the cat just started eating the food.
And also proves that not all cats like boxes. So,
Yeah. Is that true? Are dogs scared of cats, Himali?
So we have two cats two cats have us. They come and they eat at a certain time and they go away, and our dogs are petrified of them. Completely petrified. I think, so we have a golden retriever who is probably 7 times the size of the cat. And she does this feline equivalent of raising an eyebrow, like, excuse me, and off he goes scuttling. So yes, I think, I think it's, yeah.
so we've got one essay about a family of 2 dogs and a cat. It's Along Came Below. And this one of the most endearing moments of the book for me is that there's this image where the writer gives vitamin syrup to all 3 of them. And they usually do their own thing, but at that moment they are all there lined up waiting for their medicine. The 2 dogs and
And
a
the
cat.
cat. Are you sure they don't have a deal that the humans don't know about, and they get together and they laugh about it?
Very possible. We'll have to put up hidden cameras to check that. Very, very possible.
Anukriti is in the audience, no? Anukriti, are you here? Yes, please tell us something about cats.
Now.
We want to hear from you.
I have written about cats. I will not speak about the piece that I wrote, but I would speak about another cat, a cat and dog equation that I witnessed. So I work in a different life now. I work also for wildlife conservation. And as you know, conservation scientists love every animal, beginning from snake, and then it just gets better. So we have people at the office who have dogs, adopted dogs. And then somebody also brought in a cat. The cat is tiny. And I saw the dogs and the cat interacting. The dogs were just like following the cat. They just wanted to play with her. And the cat was not having any of it. And I just saw one dog just like suddenly yelp pitifully and just shy away. I was wondering what happened. Maybe an insect bit it. But I then started observing them more closely and saw that cat was like a lightning flash. That tiny creature would just shoot out a paw and just slap the dog on its nose, which is the most sensitive. And that was causing, those yelps. And all of us were trying to protect the cat when it's actually the dogs we should have been protecting. The cat's called Cumin.
There you go. What are some of the myths about dogs and then about cats, Devapriya?
I don't know if there are any myths about dogs as such, because I think cats are probably far more inscrutable than dogs are. But I think there are definitely some things to learn from dogs, like you would learn from cats. And I think, the idea of unconditional love has been spoken about many times, so I won't go into that. But I also think, however ill a dog is, if a dog is ill, he'll get up the next morning and greet it as a bright new day. And I think that is so important. This thing of not holding on to baggage unless it's like, a physical illness. And I find that actually is one of the most simple but profound things that I've learned. That, you don't hold grudges. You don't actually hold anything in your heart, but you take each day as it comes. Yeah. I don't know about myths though. Are there any myths around dogs? I think poor dogs are pretty well scrutinized and understood.
Yeah, they also don't hide anything.
They don't hide anything. It's a very transparent equation. However, I think the only exception to them not hiding anything is if a dog comes from a severely abused background, then you do need to. I think one of the things about being a pet parent is also giving the pet space, or giving your cat or your dog space to understand and adjust. I think it's not a one-way street. I think you always have to respect the space that the dog requires. So, yes, some dogs have taken a much longer time to open up and trust, but I think in general, dogs are like pretty chill. Yeah.
And every dog has their own personality, right? You can't think of them
Absolutely.
as similar to
You
a
know,
great
it's amazing.
extent.
I can't. All of them have a very, very different personality. So we have a Rottweiler who, contrary to what people think, is like the silliest dog on the planet. He's afraid of everything. He's afraid of birds. He's afraid of traffic. He's afraid of, leaves. And it's very funny to see a Rottweiler be afraid, but that's who he is. So I think it's this thing of labeling breeds as well, and that is something that I talk about, that a friend of mine talks about, Sean Morton, in the book. She talks about breeds, and she takes that further because there's breed-specific legislation and a lot that happens around that. I think it really is about giving a dog the right environment and the right space, and then seeing them thrive.
But I think it was, I'm trying to recollect if it was Jerome K. Jerome who wrote that small dogs are actually much more aggressive and they will not be as friendly as big dogs. So this is an idea many people
so to
have.
paraphrase, I love big dogs and I cannot lie. But I don't know. I know a lot of people who used to have you don't see that many poms anymore for some reason.
Yeah, these days.
These days you don't see that many. But yeah, they actually, I think it's unfair to say small dogs are nastier or meaner. I think it's just how you bring them up. But I think I've definitely seen a lot of the big dogs being very, very goofy.
And cats, Devapriya?
So, one very interesting essay here is the one by Varun Grover. And he writes about how he's, read up a lot on cat psychology. So one of the things he says is that basically cats see all other creatures in the world as cats. So humans are, so in their individualized way, they are also cats. So that was very interesting to me.
But therefore what?
Therefore, they speak their language. Now, that language, their cat language, is what they use with everybody. They don't make it easy for the humans, which is where these myths sort of, come in, that cats are cold or cats don't return your love. What I felt, at the end of this is, also, funnily, there are some dog lovers in this book who have written these guilty cat parenting essays also. But, so I thought that how everyone who's loved a dog, including me, so one of the things that people say is that dogs in Bengali, they'll say maya badai, they really increase your attachment to themselves. And in this book also we've talked about the length of a pet's life compared to the pet parents and the grief of that. So, so dogs increase attachment, and I think cats then, tell human beings that it's okay, calm down. And so, philosophically, there are two different ends, And there's a poem by Varun Grover where he says that he's observing his cat.
Why don't you read us a bit?
It's not in this book.
Okay.
But it begins, basically it's called Tark. And he says that, your cat is going to very deliberately break something very dear to you. So my friend Anila writes in this book how there is this ittardan in her house which had survived partition but did not survive her Delhi bred cats. Okay, so she talks about it, and so that I use as part of my theory that your cat will, as Varun writes, deliberately break something dear to you and then look at you and coolly walk off. And so what he says is that it's to remind you that all these things, learn to forget them.
Really? I would interpret it as setting the equation, like I'm the boss. I can break anything around here.
Yeah, and don't be so attached to the
that way.
Ittardan.
So the cat is the Buddha.
That's what I'm saying. So Maya and breaking Maya, it's like a thing. I don't know. I haven't thought it through. I just invented it.
We dog people are very simple. This is all very intellectual.
But are dogs ever guilty? do they ever feel guilty about when they accidentally, of course, do something that you don't want them to do?
Oh, yeah.
Because there are all these memes where they seem to be looking guilty.
Well,
but
they do know when they do know when they've done something that they're not supposed to do, but I have to say the guilt doesn't last very long. But yeah.
Only until they do the next thing.
Only until they do the next thing, yes.
Yeah, but they're very good at understanding when you're not feeling okay. And I don't mean physically, but emotionally or mentally.
That's true. And I've seen that with a lot of our dogs, especially with Simba. He had this intuitive thing of coming and sitting next to a person if he felt that the person was emotionally not okay. And that's interesting because we're not talking about someone being physically unwell.
Exactly.
And that's why I think you have so many therapy dogs in the West who actually go to hospitals and you go comfort young children. I think there is that intuitive relationship or that intuitive understanding of your human not being well or not being okay. And I think, I mean, it's also, I also find it's therapy if I'm not feeling great and I just have to be with one of our dogs and you feel better. You just feel better.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Hemali, this is a tough question, but as Devapriya also pointed out, as humans you have to get used to the idea that your dogs will not outlive you. And you've been through this many times. But you also can't be overcome with grief, right? In a way, because the dog has lived a full life and a good life. Mostly.
Look, I think every important relationship in your life and every loss is staggering. I don't think you can underplay or downplay that. Every time we've had a dog leave us, it's been devastating. But the way I think about it is, would I trade that for the immense love and the immense joy that that dog and that relationship has given me? No. So I think, I mean, honestly, I don't compartmentalize it to think, you know, a dog is going to be here for a certain period. I try not to think about that and just enjoy each day as it comes, like dogs do. But yes, the loss, and I also mentioned that in the book, and a fair number of the contributions are around loss. And sometimes I come across people who say, never again. And I understand that, and I respect that. And at the end of the day, I still say that it is one of the most profound and beautiful relationships you're going to have. So enjoy it.
And can there be really seriously, can there be a more, isn't it one of the top 3 beautiful moments when a puppy or a kitten arrives?
Absolutely. And it's also a beautiful moment when they embrace you and they realize that you are their person. I think that's really beautiful. And like I said, for a lot of the dogs that we've had have not come to us as puppies recently because they've been rehomed. And that moment when they come and they realize that they're in a safe space is a really beautiful one.
And you can tell that when that change is happening, right? You can tell the moment they're happy about being here.
You can. And it's profoundly beautiful.
So you know how the other thing about cats is that for certain generations, cats are considered, no, we don't want them inside the house.
Yeah.
So on, right? So my mother, for example, doesn't understand what this book is. And she's like, really? Cats? So, and yet I have this memory, very sort of vivid memory from my childhood, where my mother and my aunts are sitting in my grandparents' house. And there are these kittens who are just newly born, just they've learned to walk around, swinging from the ends of their saris, you know. And so kittens, obviously my mother's laws did not extend to kittens. I must have been very young.
Yeah, so, I mean, also it's wonderful to see cat and dog skeptics turn into cat and dog lovers. You see that happening right in front.
Always. It's glorious.
Yes. Okay, that's a good time to open this for questions. Yes, over there at the back, please. And then the gentleman in front.
Hi, so my question again pertains to cats specifically. You know, in a lot of popular culture and the way we understand things, we draw a lot of associations of how queer women and lonely women who end up without lovers in their life, they become cat ladies, right? And there's always this stereotype of, oh, crazy cat lady, right? So I think my question would be, what is it about, the relationship between women and cats that we draw these links and draw these associations, and we tend to view these relationships in a certain way?
This is a very interesting question, and I think that this book, we embrace the crazy cat lady. A lot of men also say, I am glad to be a crazy cat lady. But that said, I don't know if Wangmai is there in the audience. Are you? Wangmai has contributed an essay in which she talks about 3 writers and their cats. Are you there, Wangmai?
She's there.
There, she's there. So do you want to answer that about
Is this
cats?
on? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm going to be super coherent, but I will try.
Do you want to stand up?
Yeah, okay. Hi, yeah. Hi. Yeah, so I'm not sure if, I was just saying, I'm not sure if I'm going to be super coherent, but I can try. A minor disagreement with what you were trying to say about, the lonely sort of women stereotype having cats. At least from what I see, I feel like it's the lonely people or stereotype lonely people who tend to have dogs, and people who have too much to do who have cats, I feel, because cats involve a lot less work. They do their own thing. They don't really care about demanding affection from you, like I think a lot of people already said. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Devapriya asked me to take this because my essay kind of has something to do with people over the years who I've seen who didn't traditionally have cats at home or any pets actually at home, but cats especially because, traditionally we have associated bad things with cats, like, selfishness, being sly. So they would prefer to have a dog around their house rather than cats, I suppose. So, but yeah, a lot of women, you're right, break that sort of misconception around cats and go ahead and adopt them, or let themselves be adopted by cats, because I feel like they have a lot of giving to do in a household, especially traditional households. You have women taking care of literally 3 generations maybe in one household sometimes. And then, when they adopt a cat or when they get adopted by a cat, I feel like it's a very quiet sort of a relationship which doesn't really require much of their emotional bandwidth, but at the same time it's very fulfilling emotionally. I don't know if that might seem like a contradiction, but I suppose that's kind of how I interpret it. So yeah, and I feel like that's the kind of sort of, I don't know, different thing that
That's
I
the
would
theory
do, I suppose. Yeah.
in Wang Mai's essay.
Sounds perfect, actually. The gentleman, yeah.
It's on. I have a travelers hostel in Bangalore, okay, and we have a cat and a dog. Like, so basically a cat. She just came and there were 2 cats, and they just breed like 2 kittens there, 3 kittens, and it was a long journey that has been there for I think 7-8 months. And earlier I was a dog person, but one thing that I see that in a way hurts me, about the I am learning about the nature, and I feel that humans have come so far from the nature, right? And then we have these pets, and a lot of times we are humanizing them in a way, right? Their animal instincts and what they are trying to do, and you see a lot of times even after maybe taking a poop or something, the dog still they scratch the even though if it's a road, they can't scratch it, to cover it, or there are a lot of traits like that they have inherited, and
Sophie, I
there was
have a
nobody.
question, with
Right. So, my question is on the humanizing,
creative side
and
of
the
it.
what's your point of view on this thing, or if you would add something to that, or message or something.
About humanizing.
Yeah, I've seen some girl in hostel, she was so concerned that our dog is not sleeping properly, the sleep cycle,
right.
and it's bad, it's craziness, right? So yeah.
Okay, Hemali or Devapriya or both?
So, there's a big cat in this book as well, because we wanted to. Cats retain some of their, a lot more of their wildness, in fact, which is probably why they get bad press from us, because we are used to dogs who kind of, make it easy to love them by just being the way they are. So I think there's something in that. to that theory. But you know the big cat. This essay is written by M.K. Ranjit Singh, and it's about a tiger called Khoiri. And Khoiri was brought up by one of India's great wildlife conservationists, Saurav Jha. Khoiri and a Chausingha had been adopted together, right? And so they grew up together. They were brothers. They used to play all the time. One would run and the other would chase. And then when they were older, what happened was a terrible tragedy that while playing, Khoiri suddenly discovered her strength and the Chausingha died, right? So that, so the essay is about that and how Khoiri mourned her friend by sitting by the grave for days and not eating. So I suppose some of that wildness, cats perhaps forget to be pleasing. They remember in their bodies, they remember.
Okay, we have time for one last question. So the lady there.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, my question is to you, Hemali.
Could you hold up your mic?
My question is to you, Hemali. What would you like to say to the people who are very specific when it comes to adopting a dog, for example, a specific breed? Because I believe that adopting a dog is just like adopting a child. So when these people are not allowed to make differentiate while adopting a child, then why when it comes to adopting a dog or any other animals? So what would you say to them to change their thinking?
So, sorry, your question is around people who adopt specific breeds?
Right. So why they are putting some conditions when they are adopting an animal? So that's my question.
Sure.
And what would you say to these people to make change their thinking?
So, yeah, no, that's a very good question, and that's an ongoing conversation that happens about adopting dogs, because as we know, there are so many indies and so many strays and so many dogs who don't find a home easily. There is this thing about people wanting breed dogs. And yes, you have a lot of organizations. In fact, there are quite a few essays in the book from animal rescuers who talk about that. And there are lots of people who have adopted indies and talk about that. I think, so there are two parts to this question. The first is, of course, we need to have this thing of don't look at breed dogs, adopt indies. And I think there is some awareness happening around that now. That is changing a bit. You see a lot more people opening their homes and their hearts to indies. But I'm going to say something which is probably slightly politically incorrect, which is, I don't believe in selective compassion. I think if there is a dog, irrespective of breed, who is in need of help, I would help that dog. I would rehome that dog. I think there are lots of dogs who suffer for no fault of their own because they are breed dogs and they are overbred and then they are discarded and they are treated very badly. So to me, there's not this thing about, of course we should adopt indies and that should be a normal practice, and I think a lot is being done around that. But I think the problem lies at how easy it is to adopt a dog or to buy a dog. I mean, that's a sentient life, and you're going and buying it in a store or from a breeder. I think the problem lies there. And I think there have to be, in a utopian world, I'd say there have to be much stricter rules and regulations around how dogs should be adopted. So a lot of organizations like Friendicos and Welfare for Animals in Goa, a lot of animal welfare organizations, when they do adoptions, they do house checks. And I think that has to be a larger practice. So sorry, I've deviated from your question a bit, but I think, yeah, I think we should have definitely much stricter rules on who can actually be a pet parent. I don't think it's as simple as going and buying a dog.
All right. On that note, I'm afraid we are done today, but Hemali and Devapriya will be signing copies of their books, so you can talk further with them. Please pick up copies, get them signed, and please talk to them in the author's signing tent. Thank you very much for being here, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Devapriya, Hemali, and Arunav. We also thank Rajasthan Patrika for their support.